If you were following along with last week's video, you would have seen that I did a tour and an overview of my smart home mobile dashboard, and there was an overwhelmingly positive response to that video, with loads of you wanting to know how I did it and do a how-to or a tutorial on how to create a mobile dashboard that you guys can use in your own smart home too. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, I put up a poll on YouTube asking if you guys wanted the easy version or the hard version first. And it was a really close race, but some of you did vote just in favor of doing the easy one. Now, I will say that I'm going to show you the easy version in this guide here, but we're going to do a follow-up showing you the hard version, which is the one that I actually used for my smart home after this video goes up. So that'll be coming in the next week or so after this video. Thanks to Locket for sponsoring this video. Locket is a home insurance provider that could give you a better price on your house insurance according to the smart tech you use to protect your home. And they are currently running their Insiders program, where they will literally send you free smart tech to use in your house, including either a video doorbell, water leak sensors, or a whole house water shutoff valve, which is amazing. You'll need to switch your insurance provider to Locket, but they will cover any cancellation fees and discount your coverage if you have relevant smart tech. Check out the full details with the link in the video description. So what do I mean when I say easy versus hard? So the easy version is where you can go into Home Assistant inside of the UI, and you can pretty much click and select the cards that you want to use and build your dashboard just using a mouse by clicking and selecting the items that you want. The hard version is where the whole entire dashboard is done via code. So that is the way that I did mine. That's all done in YAML, whereas the easy one gets you about 90% of the results, so really similar look. It is a little bit less customizable, but you'll also spend a huge amount less time building this dashboard than you will the hard one. So I should probably explain why is there a difference between the easy mode and the hard mode, because wouldn't you always want to go for the easy mode? So as you'll remember, last week I said that I was using Minimalist as the dashboard or the theme for my dashboard. And Minimalist is all done in code. The entire project is built around YAML coding and being able to add lines of code to your Home Assistant to generate these dashboards. But coding in YAML is not always easy or accessible for a lot of users, especially if you're just getting started with Home Assistant. So what happened was there is a separate project actually started up by user Petea on GitHub, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And he basically saw the Minimalist theme and thought, I can make this a lot easier for people to use, and so he started a project called Mushroom. And the goal of Mushroom is to basically take the concept and the design of Minimalist as its basis and then add them all to Home Assistant UI so that you can select the cards using your mouse rather than doing any coding at all. So that is where the Mushroom project comes in and sort of the goal of the Mushroom project. So essentially Mushroom is a collection of cards that are available to select in the Home Assistant UI to make things much easier, and you don't need to know any code in order to get it working. And Minimalist is the basis for Mushroom, but it just makes it much more accessible and much easier for anyone to actually use. As a reminder, here is the dashboard that I showed you last week, and this was all done in code. There's about 5,000 lines of code or so. And then if we switch over to the other dashboard, which is created in easy mode, you'll see that it does look pretty similar. It gives you a lot of the results. So I would say probably 90% of the results, with probably 20 hours less time to create than it does on the coding side. So you'll see a really similar layout. We've got chips at the top, we've got navigation, person cards, and we've also got room cards that we can tap into and get more information about the devices. So this is the kind of thing we're going to be creating today, and I'll show you exactly how to create this specific dashboard. Let me actually show you what it looks like in light mode. And here it is in light mode. So we've got our navigation at the top, and then we've got our room cards that we can tap into. And if we switch over back to the new dashboard, you'll see again, it is a really nice looking dashboard, and it is probably about 90% of the results with a lot less effort. So this is what it looks like in light mode. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this created. First thing we need to do is to actually install Mushroom as an integration into Home Assistant. And this is done via Hacks. If you don't have Hacks installed, then please do look in the description. I'll leave a link for how to install it. It's really easy to do, and hopefully you should already have that done. Once you have hacks installed, you're going to want to come over into the front end section and then hit the plus button in the bottom right hand corner and then search for Mushroom. Now both of these are in the hacks repository by default, so they should show up instantly for you, and you want to install both of these. The Mushroom repository actually provides the cards to Home Assistant, so you may want to make sure and hit download on that repository and then install the Mushroom cards. And you'll also want to install the Mushroom themes too, and that's basically going to provide the styling for you. Once you've got both of those installed, you want to make sure and hit the reload button if it pops up, and then we need to create a new dashboard for Home Assistant to actually load. So go over to configuration and then go into dashboards and add a new dashboard and give it a name. So we'll just call this Mushroom Guide because I've already got one, and then we'll click on create. And you'll see that in our menu, we now have a mushroom icon now appearing, and that is our new dashboard that we're going to start creating on. So go over to that dashboard and you'll see we have a whole bunch of entities that has already been automatically been added to this dashboard, and it's a complete mess. So click on the three dots in the top right hand corner and hit edit dashboard. And then you'll want to tick the box to say start with an empty dashboard and hit take control, and that's going to remove all of the entities and everything from this dashboard so that we can start from afresh. If you click on add card and then scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that hopefully we should now see a whole bunch of new custom cards called Mushroom that we can now use and add to our dashboard. So you'll see we've got an alarm card, a cover card, entities, lights, and all of those other various cards now showing up. If they're not showing up, make sure to refresh your browser cache, because it's likely that they have been cached and they're just not showing up. So make sure to clear the cache and come back in and they should show up. Before we start creating this dashboard, I thought it would make sense to actually look at the original Minimalist that I showed you last week, just so we can see how it's meant to look, and we'll start creating our new one first. So at the top we have our sort of welcome card with navigation buttons and also some chips at the top, and then underneath that we have a person card, and then we have our title and then our room cards. So this is kind of what we're going to try and imitate in the new Mushroom layout, and hopefully try and make them as close as we can. So the first thing I want to do is start creating those chips that were along the top that had the weather as well as some other buttons in them. So if we click on add card and then scroll down, we're going to see that we have a card called Mushroom Chips card. So that is this one here, and those are those little informational displays at the top. And you'll see it gives us a default action of home, which I don't want at the moment. So what we can do is to click on the cross and then add a new chip. And you'll get various buttons or various functions within these chips that you can select from. The first one I want to do is probably to create an alarm card. So let's create that and then click on the pencil icon, and you'll get some more options that you can configure for those chips. So it's already done a good job of selecting my house alarm up at the top, and we can change various things about the card. So we can change things from the icon, what icon it displays, what happens when you tap the card, as well as hold the card, as well as double tap the card. So we can go ahead and enter in any information we want. So we can change this to say alarm, and then we could change the content to name, or we could change the content to state. I think we'll leave it on state as that makes the most sense for an alarm card. And then we'll click on the back button and we're going to add a few more chips. So this time I want to add a weather card. So that is going to show the weather information that is currently happening where I live. It's quite easy to go in and just tick on the options that you actually want. So we want to show the conditions, and we also want to show the temperature. And I think that looks a lot better. So that's all I want to do for the weather card. And we're going to add one final card, or one final chip. So for this one, I'm going to choose the entity card, and again, we'll click on the little pencil icon to actually go in and edit that. I've got an entity called count, and basically this counts the number of lights that are actually on in the house. So we'll give this a name of lights on. We'll set the icon to bulb, and we'll set the color to be amber. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. If we go back and just do one final check, so this is how it's actually going to look on the right hand side. So it's kind of like a live preview. Now you'll notice all of the icons are shifted over to the left, but I think for mobile it'd be much nicer if they were centered. And all we're going to do is go up and click on this alignment option and then hit center, and that's going to move all of the icons over into the center, and then we can hit save to actually save that card. So That has created our first line of cards, so the little chips, and it's as easy as that. And that's basically all we're going to do for the rest of the cards. We're going to go through and add them. You'll see on the left hand side, I've got a sort of preview of what the dashboard looks like. And now that I've actually added a card onto the dashboard, it's came up at the bottom and saying that we need to refresh. So I'll click on refresh, and this gives us a sort of a live view of what it looks like on a mobile dashboard when the screen is a lot narrower, because on the desktop the icons will spread out a little bit. Keep an eye on the left hand side, that'll show us what it actually looks like on mobile. The next thing I want to do is to add our welcome message, so it'll say good morning or good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is. So that'll be the next card under there. So we're going to press on add card, and we'll scroll down, and unfortunately as of yet there is no welcome card built into Mushroom, but we can use a template card. So the template card is sort of a more advanced card where you can add Home Assistant templates into it to have it give you different information depending on the template. So this is the template card here. Basically I want to set no icon, so just remove the icon. You'll see under the primary information and the secondary information that we already have some text populated in there. So you'll see it says hello bracket bracket user, and the user template is basically, it returns the name of the current logged in user, and you can see that in the preview window over on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is just actually get rid of the secondary information, so it just says hello user. And then I've already prepared a template for this card. Feel free to copy, and it's basically going to say good evening, good morning, or good afternoon depending on the time. So I'm going to paste that in, and that looks a little bit like this. Now I don't want to go too in depth into what the template actually does. If you're more interested in how to actually work with templates, then make sure to check out this video over here where we've already done a full in-depth guide into templates, because there is a lot to cover when it comes to templates. So what this template basically does is it gets the current hour of the day, and then it works out if the time is greater than 6 p.m. then say good evening, if it's greater than 12 then say good afternoon, and if it's greater than 5 a.m. then say good morning, and anything else then just say hello. So I will leave the code for this template down in the description if you want to copy it for yourselves, but that is how to do a quick template in the template card. So as you can see on the right hand side, it now says good afternoon Lewis, and that is great. We're going to go ahead and hit save, and that is the next card added. I would say that's probably the hardest card to do out of everything we're going to do today, so not terribly complex, and the rest of it is pretty much click and select. Again, I'm going to hit refresh over on the left hand side so we can see what it looks like. And now I'm going to add a new card, and this time it's going to be those navigation buttons for home, lights, security, and the lab. So we'll go ahead and hit add card. And this time, instead of selecting a mushroom card first, the first card I actually want to select is the horizontal stack. Now, the horizontal stack is exactly as it sounds. It's going to keep all of the items within it in a horizontal row so that they don't try and move down to different columns. It'll keep them locked in a horizontal position. So when I select horizontal stack, it then asks me which other card I want to select. For this one, again, we're going to select the template card, but don't worry, we're not actually going to use any templates in it. So select template card, and then this time we're going to keep the icon in there. So the first button I'm going to create is the house button for the house navigation, if you remember. And we can set the icon color to be blue, and that's going to change the color up here, and we'll do a different color for each button. And then under the primary information, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to just write house. And then for secondary information, I'm going to bin that out also. So this is what it looks like currently on the top right hand corner, but you'll see a few issues. Firstly, we haven't added the other icons that are going to be in a row. We'll do that in just a second, but also that the house text is to the right of the icon instead of underneath. If you actually scroll down, you'll see that we have layout, and you can select vertical layout, and that's going to put the text underneath the icon color. So perfect. And then the only other thing we need to do is set a tap action, and then we can select the navigate action from there. And in the navigation path, we'll put house. And that is actually all we need to do. Now, the navigation path will become clear in later on when we actually create that view. But for now, all you need to know is that we're going to put house in there, and that's going to be the house view. So if we go back up and look at our button, it looks good. The only thing we're going to do is just to repeat that exact same steps and start adding more buttons for lights, security, and the lab. So if we hit the plus button, search for template and add the mushroom template card. And again, we just need to do the exact same thing. So this time set light bulb as the icon, and as the color, we'll put amber. And again, get rid of the secondary information, put in lights as the primary information, select vertical as the layout, and you'll see that it now is starting to take shape and it's starting to make a bit more sense. So again, tap action should be navigate, and we'll put in navigation path as lights. Now the navigation path can be anything you want, just make it something logical that you will actually understand and remember what it is later down the road. So let's go ahead and I'll add the other 3 buttons now. The only thing I will say when it comes to the navigation path is just make sure it's all probably in lowercase letters, and probably don't add any spaces into the navigation path. So I've went through and created the rest of the navigation buttons for house, lights, security, lab, and network. And that's what these look like. So I just basically repeated the exact same steps that we did. Set the icon color, set the information, set the layout, and then set the tap action to navigate. Let's go ahead and save that and see what that looks like if we hit refresh over here. And that's now added our navigation button. So things are actually starting to take shape, and we can now add a title card. This is the easiest card probably in the whole thing. Search for a title, and then we're just gonna go ahead and say, or enter rooms. And that's pretty much it. Now let's go ahead and add our room card. So there is actually a couple of ways you can do this. You can use the built-in light card, which is really easy to do. And you can also use a template card, which will give you a little bit more functionality depending on what you actually want. I'll show you both. We'll go ahead and do the light card first. So what I'm gonna do is click on add card. And the first thing you want to do is again add a horizontal stack so that the lights are or stay fixed next to each other and they don't move out of position. So go ahead and select horizontal stack and then search for the light card. And the entity at the top you'll want to make sure and set to the main light for that room so that you can quickly toggle and control the light without having to go into the room view. So I'll leave that as kitchen lights, and we'll set the name to kitchen for kitchen room. Select an icon, I'll use the chef's knife, and then underneath that you get some various controls that actually allow you to control and toggle the light. So we can select the state, we can select use light color, and what that does is change the color of the card to match the color that the light is currently, which is a really nice feature. You also get brightness control, and that allows you to toggle the brightness of the light right from the card. And you also get temperature control, which again, if your light supports it, and you also get color control again if your light supports it. So I'm going to leave all of these options off for now. And then all we need to do is actually create a tap action. And again, we're just going to use navigate as our tap action. So you'll see that we have 3 actions. We have tap, hold, and double tap. I'm going to set the tap action to be navigate. So if I just tap the card, it'll take me into the room. I'm going to set the hold action to actually toggle the light. So if I press and hold the card, it will actually toggle the light on and off. So under tap action, set navigate, and then set the navigation path again to whatever makes logical sense to you. So I'm going to select kitchen, and then under the hold action, I'm going to set that to toggle. So now whenever I tap the card, it's going to take me into the room for the view. And if I press and hold the card like that, it's going to actually toggle the light. So that is the first way that you could do that using the light card. I'm going to add a second card now and use a template card instead. So you'll see that's actually added a second button alongside my light card. Now the problem with the light card is that it doesn't actually allow you to control the secondary information. So it just, by default, it will show you the state of the light, which I don't particularly find to be very useful. I would much rather show a different sensor there. You'll remember that if I show you my original view, that on my room card, I actually have the temperature of the room as that information. So I really want this 19.7 degrees to show up here instead of the light percentage. And we can actually do that using a template card. So right at the top of the template card, I'm going to select our entity. So again, we'll find the light. So we'll set this to office TV light, and then I'll select an icon again for this room. We'll ignore icon color, but we'll come back to that in just a second. Under the primary information, we'll just set that to the room name, so office. get rid of the secondary information again, just for the second. And then under the actions, we'll set tap action to be navigate and select a navigation path. And then the hold action will be toggle. So that has given us a pretty similar card done in the template card instead. And if I press and hold the card, it's then going to toggle the light behind me, and again I can toggle that off. But you'll see that the first problem is that the icon color doesn't change when I press it, and also we haven't added our temperature. So let's add the temperature first to the secondary information. Again, we can use a template here to get any information that we want and add it to our card. So what I'm going to do is basically add a template that gets the office temperature and then returns that and puts that into the secondary information. And that can be done with something really simple, just like this. So sensor. So office temperature is the name of my sensor for the temperature in this room. And now if we go up, you'll see that it shows 20.1. So you can search for the degree symbol on Google, grab that, copy it, head back to your dashboard, and then paste that in, and then add degrees C. So that now shows 20.1 degrees C, really good. The last thing not working is the icon color is obviously not changing depending on the color of the light. And that is really easy to add. We can just do that again with a template. And here is a super simple template that you can use to get the color of, or change the color of the icon depending on what the light is. So this is a template that basically says, if the state of the office TV light is on, then set the icon color to orange, else don't do anything. And now you'll see that if I toggle this light by pressing and holding, and the light turns off, the icon goes back to gray. And if we turn it back on, the light will then change to amber. And now if we go ahead and save that and then refresh our view on the left, that now shows both of our room cards and they look really good. That's how to create a room card by using the standard light card, or how to create a room card using a template. Both of them look really good and both work really well depending on what your needs are. I just noticed that we missed the person card, which should be above the room title over here. So we can go ahead and add that in and move it into position. So just press add card and then we'll search for person, and there is already a built-in person card into Mushroom, which is really good. Remember to use horizontal stacks if you want to have things line up with each other. So if you want to have multiple people cards all in one row, remember to use a horizontal stack. That is something that caught me out a lot of the time. So in the person card, you'll select the person up at the top, and then you can also select an icon, or you can take this option to use a picture if you have one set up for your user profile. You can also hide the state if you want to. I'm going to leave it enabled. And you can also hide the name again if you want to. I'm going to leave that enabled. For the tap actions, you can just leave these as the default actions, which will actually bring up the more information page. If we click on save, that has now added, but you'll see that it's at the end of the columns, which is not where we want it. We want it to be above. So click on the up arrow a couple of times to move it above the title card. If we refresh our page on the left, that has now added our person card, and if we click on it, that will bring up the more information panel, which will show you any of the information that you need. So let me go ahead and create the rest of our room cards, and then we'll come right back. So I've went ahead and created the rest of the room cards. So now our home page is actually looking pretty good. We've got all of the information that we wanted to have on there and all of our controls. The only thing that's left to do is to actually make the navigation buttons work, because you'll see that when we click on any of these buttons, they don't actually take us into the room. So we need to create some separate views for that. If we come over and click on the plus button up here, we can create a new view. So what I'll do is I will call this, let's do the first one, and we will call this office. Now you can give this a title if you want, and then fill in the URL. So the URL here is important because it needs to match up with what you created as your navigation path earlier. So remember when we created the press and hold action or the tap action, we set navigate as the action, and then we set a navigation path. This needs to match up with the URL of the view you are creating. So if you set navigation path to office in the button card, then you'll need to set that to be office as the URL. Hopefully that makes sense. If I save that, that is now going to take us into a new view where we have a totally blank page to again add our cards. And now to double check that you actually got the URL right in the new view, go ahead and click on the button back on your homepage, and it should hopefully take you into this blank view, and that confirms that your button is working as it should be. Let's now go ahead and add cards to this view and sort of build out this room view. So over on the left hand side here, we have the original minimalist view that I created. So you'll see we've got at the top, we've got a back button, and we've also got a title, and then we've got a couple of cards that show temperature and humidity. And then we've got our devices section with our lights, office display, and our blind controls. And then underneath that, we have the sensors for this room. That was just to show you kind of how it's supposed to look. Let's go ahead and now create this in Mushroom. The first card we want to create is that back button right at the top, and we can do this with the built-in card. So if we search for chip and select the Mushroom chips card, Mushroom has already got a built-in card for this button, which is really handy. So let's get rid of the default chip and add a new one and select the back chip. And that automatically does everything for us. We don't actually need to do anything. We can hit save button on there, and that immediately adds our back button right in the top left-hand corner. So that is really easy to do. The next card under that was 2 graph cards. So that was for temperature and also humidity. Now Mushroom doesn't have any graph cards built in by default, at least not yet. You can use other community cards like the mini graph card, but I'm just going to go ahead and use the stock or the default Lovelace card that is already built into Home Assistant, because that seems to work pretty good here. So what I'm going to actually do is search for the horizontal stack. Remember to add your horizontal stacks. And then I will search for the sensor card and select that one. Select my office temperature, set a name, and then all of these other options are actually good for what I'm going for. So I'm going to hit the plus button, add another one for humidity. And now we've got our 2 graph cards, we can go and save that. Refresh it on the left hand side, and we are starting to get our office dashboard set. Let's now add the lights to this room, as well as the media controls and the cover card. So again, add card. I'm going to use horizontal stack. All of these elements are going to have a horizontal stack in them so that I can keep everything in line in pairs so they don't shift out of line. Again, we're going to use the Mushroom light card, and then we'll select this to be office. Let's call this the main light because it's the overhead one, and we'll set the ceiling, select that one. And you can set any of these options as you want to. The only other thing you want to do is set the tap action to be toggle so that when you press it, it actually toggles the light on and off. The next card over is again going to be a light card, and that is going to be for our office TV light. Now this light does support all of these other options, so we can set the brightness from the card like this, and that's going to change the brightness of this light behind us. And you can also set the temperature control as well as color control, and the card will actually adapt to all of these controls that you set. I'm going to leave those off but leave the brightness control on because I do like having that. And then again under tap action we'll set that to be toggle. If we refresh our page, you'll see that that has now added our light controls onto the page. Now it does remind me that I forgot to add a title card, so we'll just add that back in. So search for title. And this time, instead of having a large title, I'm just going to have a subtitle, which is going to say devices. Click the up arrow to move that into position and refresh our page, and that is now looking good. The next row under, we're going to add the third light that is in this room. Again, we'll use a horizontal stack. And then instead of another light card, next to this one, I'm going to search for media. Mushroom doesn't have a media card, at least not yet, but another card that I did find works well is this card called Custom Mini Media Player, and you can install this from hacks, and again it also is configurable in the UI. So I'm going to select Office Display as this one, and you'll see that it pretty much matches up and sort of looks the exact same style as our Mushroom cards, which is really good. There's quite a few options you can set with this card. I'm just going to leave them at the default. If we press save and now refresh our page, that has added our controls to this room. And if we click on the power button to start up this display, we then get access to the media or the volume controls for this display, and the card automatically expands. So I do like that card for Mushroom, and it's really easy to use. Again, all done through the UI. Our final control card for this room is going to be a cover card. And this is for the blind that is over on this window. So Mushroom has a card for this called cover card. Again, select the entity you want to use. That's blind, set a name. And there's a few options again with this card. So you can select it to have position control, which is a slider. Maybe that's more suitable for a curtain. And you also have button control, which gives you the up and down. I prefer this for a blind, but it's totally your choice, whichever you choose. For the tap action, I will again set toggle so that you can have a quick toggle if you want to, and hit save and then refresh. And that's going to show up again with our other device controls. Now we want to add a block that has a bunch of sensors in it. So I'll add another title using the subtitle just so it's a little bit smaller and more subtle. Hit save. And now we want to add our sensors into this block. So we'll again add a horizontal stack. And this time we're going to use the entity card that Mushroom provides. So there is a card called Mushroom Entity Card, and we'll select our office motion. And the defaults for this card pretty much do everything for us. You'll see it adds our icon as well as the name, and it also gives us the state, and all of those things are changeable. You can select the color of the icon if you want to. You can select which icon and how it's all displayed. If I move, you'll actually see that the color of the icon changes, so that is a really nice addition. Let's add our next card, which I will add as a battery card. Again, I'm going to use the entity card for this one. It's a really good card. It works for a lot of sensors and devices, so that is pretty much the card that you will use for all of your sensors. Search for office motion. Now that looks a little something like this. If we hit refresh, you'll see that it is now starting to really take shape, and we're starting to get actually pretty close to how my dashboard looks in a lot less time. So let me add the rest of these sensors. Great, so now we have our main page all created, and we also have our office page all fully populated too, and our back button works, and we can kind of go back and forth between them. Now all we have to do is repeat those exact same steps for all of the other views and all of the other pages that we want. I'm not going to show you that because that would take quite a long time, and it's all really repetitive. It's all the exact same stuff that we just done. So let me go ahead and do that and create the rest of our rooms. So that's me pretty much went through and added on the rest of the views. Probably took like an hour or so to do. Not too long at all compared to Minimalist, which does take a very long time, considerably longer than doing this. So let's go through and just take a look at some of the rooms that we've done. So I went through and added in the rest of the controls just like we did for the office room, and I've also added in the controls up at the top, or the navigation up at the top. So in house we've got our heating controls at the top, as well as bin collection, NAS storage and shopping list, and those are all built-in cards, either the stock Lovelace cards or they are the Mushroom cards. I will say that that is one thing that Mushroom is missing, is a thermostat or a climate card. I really think it could do with having that added in here, so I would like to see them add that into. If we go back into lights, this is all just our light controls. These are using the standard light cards. In security we have an alarm card, so Mushroom does have a custom card for alarm, and you can go in and set different settings in there which show which states you want to have on the card, so it does have a card. The camera cards are just stock Lovelace or stock Home Assistant cards for showing the camera. And then we have motion controls down below, exactly the same as we did for our sensors. In the lab section, we do have our OpenSense card. So you'll remember, I'll put it up here, that we added in controls showing the status of OpenSense, which is the firewall that I use. It had things like the update, as well as CPU, memory, the WAN status, the download, upload speed, all of those things. I'd created my own custom card in Minimalist. Not quite the exact same look that we have here in Mushroom, but it does get close and it does provide all the information, the exact same information, just not quite all as nicely packed together, but the functionality is there and it didn't take any time at all to create. Whereas the one in Minimalist took me probably like the better part of a day to actually create that custom card. There's one last thing I actually almost forgot to show you, and that's how to get rid of this top bar. So you'll see that at the top of our UI, it's showing all of these different views and the different pages that we went through and created earlier. And this is one of the most requested things I got, was how do I disable that top bar? So what you're going to want to do is come back into hacks and then go into front end. and then add a new integration, and we're going to search for kiosk mode. You'll see that there is a card for kiosk mode, so go ahead and install that. And then back on our dashboard, you're going to want to go to the three dots in the top right hand corner and click on Raw Configuration Editor. And then at the very top of the code, make sure to not touch anything else in here just in case something breaks. But you're going to want to enter kiosk_mode. And then on a new line, make sure to indent twice. Do hide_header equals true, or hide header : true. So kiosk mode, hide header true, and then hit the save button and go back to your dashboard. And if we click on done and then refresh, you'll see that our header at the top is now completely disappeared. So there's no header up here. And you'll see on the left hand side, if we just refresh the page, that our header is now completely gone and there's no views left at the top, and it's just a full page of your dashboard and your card. So that is how to get rid of the top bar on Home Assistant. You can of course still swipe in from the left and get access to the menu that way, but the top bar is now completely disappeared. And if for any reason you do need to get back into that header and you can't get access to it, what you can do is click on the URL for your dashboard anywhere, and then on any of the pages this will work, and then add !disable_km to the end, hit enter, and then the header bar will now show up and you can get back in to do your edits. That is how to create a really nice looking dashboard, or a nice mobile dashboard for Home Assistant using Mushroom. And this is a really cool project. I'm really glad that this project exists because I do understand that Minimalist is not for everyone. It is seriously difficult to configure if you are a beginner and you're not used to doing YAML coding or even coding dashboards at all. Then Minimalist is quite difficult to get started with, again, if you haven't ever done it before. So really glad that Mushroom exists, and it takes pretty much all of the functionality and all of the look and the nice appeal of Minimalist and adds it into a really easy and sort of digestible format for people to go in, select the options they want, all of the options make sense, and get a really nice looking dashboard. So if you are looking for an easier way and you feel really overwhelmed with Minimalist, then this is definitely a really good way to go, and hopefully you got something out of this and hopefully you can use this project. Big shout out to Patea, hopefully I'm saying your name right, for creating this project in the first place. You've done an amazing job with this. Again, I cannot overstate how much quicker this is to do in Mushroom compared to Minimalist. In fact, I had Sarah create the entire dashboard that you saw at the very beginning. I just said, here you go, create a dashboard that looks the exact same as the one I created. And it didn't take her any time at all, and she was able to figure out the entire thing. So if she can do it, I'm pretty sure that you can do it also. And she has no experience with Home Assistant. She's never used it other than to control devices. So yeah, really easy to use and a big time saver. I know lots of you are waiting for the full Minimalist where we dive into the code. I am going to cover that. I just wanted to make sure and cover the beginner or the easier version first, so that people could make a decision to actually use Mushroom instead of Minimalist if they didn't feel comfortable getting started with YAML. So the full Minimalist version is coming, where we're going to get into all of the code. Hopefully we'll get that done very shortly so we can go over and have both versions so that you can choose which one you actually want to use. Anyways, that is about going to do it from me for this video. I know this is going to be a longer video. This was definitely a long video to do, but hopefully it gave you some value and hopefully you got something out of it. Make sure to drop this video a like and get subscribed, and I will see you in the next video.